Are we on Facebook and Skype and not Zoom and uh, your skinny sister's butt? We're on like every platform you've got.
Actually on. So everybody knows we are actually on four platforms. We're on Facebook. We are on YouTube, which is Divided We Stand. We are on Periscope, which, believe it or not, we do have people who watch that. We have a fellow colleague, Mike Villela, who watches the program on Periscope. And
How would you do that? He doesn't watch it.
and we're no, he does. At least I see that he viewed it.
Oh, Michael, if you're out there tonight, I want to see your name. Okay,
I
I
don't
don't
know
even
that he's
believe you
going to.
exist.
I don't know if he's going to say anything about that. But tonight we are on three different platforms, and again, we are with David Price, writer, former journalist, and that was you were a journalist for the British News and the Atlantic City Press and the
And
Philadelphia Bulletin,
the
correct?
Philadelphia Bulletin. I worked for three papers back in the 70s and 80s. But I still, as I said, I still consider myself a journalist now, maybe more than ever. We can talk about that a little bit later. But it's the new kind of journalist, the 21st century journalist, a freelancer. All my writing now is journalistic writing is online. So it's an interesting experiment for an old man like myself to do at this time.
Excellent, Dave. Excellent. Now we're going to be talking about a lot of different things related to the pandemic tonight. But first of all, I want to clear up a few things with you. You had mentioned that you have an exclusive in some way for us,
But
having to do with
I don't want to give it
China.
away. I'm still working on it, but I will give people that are listening tonight some hints. Let's see. What does it involve? Well, hold on a minute. I'll be right back with you. Hold on, Brian, just a second, okay? Because
Yes.
I have a visual to go with this.
Oh my God. I don't know what's going to happen, but something will happen.
It will. Something will always happen. I'm back, Brian.
You're back. All
And
right.
here we are.
Okay,
So
Dave.
if you recognize this woman, and you should, this is Stormy Daniels. If you remember, so long ago, it seems like 412 years ago. But of course, it came out that she and Donald Trump had sex. No question about that.
Hmm.
A lot of questions. Did he use money? I mean, no questions apparently that he paid her off. But so it involves Stormy. I don't want to say we have an intimate relationship, but we've talked a couple times. And let's see, Donald, of course. But here's the big thing. For the first time, I think we can tie those two names into a third name that's in the news a lot, and that would be China, the country.
Hmm.
And of course, we're still looking at that. Maybe we'll talk tonight. I did get to talk to a couple people in the Pentagon about what the informal thinking is there in terms of China's involvement. But yeah, that'll be breaking on one of my Facebook pages or in one of my blogs later. Tonight I'll stay up when you get off the air. I'll come back on and talk about all that. No, I'm going to do that. So anyway, yeah, that's the exclusive, Brian. It'll be a few days for I
Yes.
tie it
And
down.
you do. I mean, we can say you know her somewhat personally. You've seen her birthday suit, I think.
I believe it's the only thing that Donald Trump and I have in common. Yes, I have seen, and you know, again, I understand. Some people just say a porn star up, but if you get past that, she is really, really smart. Okay, she was a National Honor Society student. She was an editor, very good writer at the beginning. Well, this is not the Stormy down. We can talk about Stormy all night, but let's just say, and we'll leave it to the people's imagination, that the only thing that Donald Trump and I share in common is we have both seen Stormy Daniels in what my grandfather Walter Lee Price would have said, the way God brought her into the world. I think I treated her, hopefully, much different than Mr. Trump. But again, she really is. I mean, she's a very impressive person. I tell anyone, if you don't believe that, go to her Twitter account. She is the best I've seen in America at handling trolls. I suggested to her that she should actually write a book, as I suggest to everyone. Now, her book, which she did write, but I said, you should really write a book on how to handle trolls. When people put, it's really, again, I understand some people offended by the pornography part. But if if you're open-minded, you want to look past that. It's somebody, the book is well written. It wasn't ghost written. But her thing is to go to her Twitter account, look at that, and just see how she handles those troll remarks that we all get. I think
Right.
I think she's brilliant in that. Really, I do.
Well, it certainly seems like he's I don't want, no pun intended, he's laid off of her since the situation with Avenatti and Stormy Daniels. But yeah,
Well,
she's
that's a good place to start tonight with Trump. I don't know where you're intending to go with this, but the thing that is amazing about Donald Trump, well, many things are amazing, but he creates chaos, scandal, wherever he goes. And that's not hard to understand. He is a habitual liar. I don't think even he knows the truth. But I mean, think about that. We could list at least, I'm guessing here, but at least 50 instances of controversy, more maybe. It starts. Go back to there's a lot of sex kick here. Let's go back to the Russian P tape. Does that? I mean, just from his very entry, and of course, dirt attaches to all politicians. One of my favorite books for anybody out there who's politically minded is written by Robert Penn Warren. It was also a movie, but don't watch the movie, read the book. And one of the characters in there said, "Oh, find the dirt. There's always dirt. Man, I want to get this right. Man is born in the stench. No, in the stink. I'm sorry. Man is born in the stink of the deity and dies in the stench of the shroud." And basically, that's kind of true with politicians. There's out there somewhere, even if they were 17, 19. But Trump has brought that to a new art where people, I think, are just stunned. What did he do today? What did he do today? There are people that, what did he do overnight? Because the man apparently doesn't sleep much, and then he tweets, and we've got something else. I loved it. Today, I was looking in, he says, he knows what happened to the North Korean leader, but he's not at liberty to say.
right.
Bullshit. Bullshit, Donald Trump. If you believe that, call us now and tell us.
Right.
We won't tell anybody. No, he doesn't know. But anyway, that's Donald Trump. So, I mean, unbelievable. Some of them are very serious. My pet concern is that the man authorized the jailing of children. And all they were trying to do is seek the promise of the American dream. Now, I understand. I'm not talking about opening borders. But I mean, it was not just take them from. He took babies. Well, he didn't, but he authorized the taking of babies from their mothers. It's times like that when I really do wish there was actually a biblical heaven and hell. I don't believe in that because there'd be a special place for Donald Trump in hell.
Interesting. I might have a little bit of a delay here, but we're going to see.
Yeah,
what
you
happens.
do because
The best way to do it is like this. All right, I'm going to see if I can change the mic delay real quick.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, this has not been a
Suppose I
good
can
night for electronics. For anybody out there, you got to give Brian a lot of credit. He did destroy the connection. He claims he didn't. It wasn't on my end. It was on Brian's end. But no, what happens is you're doing all these things, and if anybody's used Zoom or any platform, they can crash, they can fall. The way I look at it, and nobody cares how I look at it, including myself, but it's like the way I kind of analyze it. This is like TV in the early 50s. We're not there yet. Someday it'll be instantaneous. It'll be boom. There won't be these problems. But right now, there's still being worked out.
Right.
And of course, nobody's really working on them right now because everybody's jumping on these platforms to use this as we're all staying in our homes.
Right. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll show both of us, but when I ask a question, I'll have the camera on.
Brian,
you.
I mean, if you want ratings, I wouldn't show yourself. I would keep the camera constantly on me. But that's just me.
All right.
What do
All right. So, Dave,
Yes.
tonight we're going to talk about economics. Last week we had discussed things concerning the election and what was going to come up. But today I think it's important to discuss economics because it seems to be the whole ball game. It seems to be what Trump is worried about. And we could broadly speak about it, but I'd like to get somewhat specific. You and I have discussed what might happen by, say, September in terms of what will happen in education, what will happen in sporting events, what will happen in certain types of employment where we have close physical proximity. That seems to be the whole ball game because even though some states are opening up right now, they really are doing it at their own peril because some people just aren't going to go to the barbershop or they're not going to go to the restaurant. So maybe we could take one of those as an example
What I'd
and
like to
see
do,
where
I
you
think
go
that's
with it.
very interesting. And again, people, we never discussed this beforehand, so this is totally ad lib in that sense. But I like to do it this way, Brian. Let's talk about some things that I am somewhat familiar with, rather than honing in just on the airline industry or this. So let's look at some of the things. All right. So I said I'm a journalist. I'm back to being a journalist. The old adage of the journalist was get off your fat ass, get outside, and look what's going on. And that's what I've been doing recently. I'm the creator and curator and a writer for, of course, a new thing, which, Brian, you're also writing for. It's called Every Storm Runs Out of Rain, a journal of a pandemic. And the purpose of this is through art, pictures, stories, video, making right now a living, breathing record, I guess, of what we're all going through for us now. And then someday, perhaps it will stand. I mean, I'm egotistical. I'm not that egotistical, but who knows? It might be an artifact someday that historians look at. So we'll do that here in Washington, D.C., the D.C. Public Library, the archives, the Smithsonian. They're all collecting artifacts already, right, of this period, because we know, I feel safe. There hasn't been anything like this in the 21st century. I understand we had 9/11, but that was a localized event in the sense that it was localized in New York and Washington, D.C., and unfortunately, a barren field in Pennsylvania. This is worldwide. It's in every state. It's in every community. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the community I cover, which is Crystal City. So we're talking about the effects, right? And where does it go? Just in the past 36 hours, I guess, I walk. And I do kind of a dual thing. I do exercise, but I'm also looking for that. So here's what I discovered just walking. All right. So we have an underground here, runs for 11 blocks. There's nobody down there much. When it rains, it becomes our walking track. So yesterday, I found a custom tailor shop that is closing May 20th. The owner is Korean. He has been a tailor for 55 years, 33 of them at that location. He's 77 years old. And I asked him, and I'm not making fun of anyone. I mean, I admire his English is far better than my Korean. But he basically said it, and I think it said it very succinctly. I know open, nobody come. I close. There's a business gone. We see that all the time. So businesses are going to close and not reopen. Some are saying that I've talked to we'll move to another business, which I love. I love to eat. And we have some really fabulous restaurants here, all of which now are simply serving takeout food like they are in most states. All right. And this week I interviewed 3 different restaurateurs. Interesting today, though, there was some good news. We have a Ted's Montana Grill attached to our complex that reopened today. I was in there. I was talking to Nicole. Shout out to Nicole. And we were just, speculating what would happen. And it was interesting that she was trying to describe what might happen. I said, please keep the buffalo on the wall, at least. He's not bothering anyone, of course, which is one of the signatures there. But they don't know. Can you think about this, people? Will you ever go to a bar again? Now, I'm not talking about the restaurant part. I'm not talking about the food. I'm talking about a bar. How do you socially distance at a bar, right? Seats crammed up. Most people, I was talking to the owner or one of the 4 owners of the Crystal City Sports Pub here. That's coming up, an article I'm doing on them. And Billy Baines, his name. And again, he said, what does it mean? Well, we'll probably take half our tables out, right? The bar is still open. Well, does that mean you get half the money, right? He did have an interesting observation. And it's not at all like what would you say, some kind of hyena or jackal or somebody looking over to pick the bones of the dead. But his estimation, he's been in business a long time. He said here in the National Landing area, which encompasses Potomac Yards, Crystal City, and Pentagon City, 184 eateries. He said 60% of them will not reopen. So out of every 10, and the 4 that will, They will make it if they can survive through this. And he said, unfortunately, we will get some of their customers because there'll still be people that go out to eat. But he said, how many will go out to eat? And I pose that question to you, Brian, right now.
Right. Well, that is the question actually I was going to ask you.
Right.
As you know, a restaurant depends on a large number of customers. So let's suppose that a restaurant only receives 25% of their customers. How can they, first of all, just decide on how much they're going to have to order, how many people are going to be employed at the time? That's not going to pay the bills, especially if you have rent.
Well, Billy actually touched on that. I'm not the kind of reporter that needs all the figures. I'm looking more at the human factor. So I asked him, I said, but Billy's very open. And he said, currently the sports pub, now, if you can envision this, it's a 3-story building, 100 TVs.
Wow.
Well, every sport is covered. I've been in the building where you almost couldn't get in. It was that full, right? 3-story building. Now, of course, no one's there. So right now he's losing $200,000 a month. Okay. No March Madness. This would be one of the busiest times, and what's interesting about this time losing, it wouldn't be good anytime, but football is basically Saturday
and
Sunday with a Monday night game and a Thursday night game.
Correct.
Right. And, but this time, think about this. You would have hockey going, baseball, basketball. You lost all of March Madness, and we're going to talk about schools in a minute, but let's finish just a little bit here with restaurants. So yeah, Brian, here's the thing that we know. We don't know what's going to happen. That's not very reassuring, is it? But look, out there, I'm not an expert, but I have to look at what I see, what I hear, what I read about. And I like this term I came across this week. It's kind of sci-fi, but it really is. They were talking about from the advent of mankind, however that happened, to 2019. They were talking about it. They're going to call that the before time. Right? Now, obviously, things change throughout that. So what that kind of indicates is, and I would agree with this, every single thing we do will be changed. Let's go to schools for a moment. You and I both have taught. You should hear our conversations. They're interesting. But here's the thing. Tonight I will say to anybody in New Jersey, which is where I taught, where Brian teaches now, I'm not saying this with any pleasure whatsoever. School will not be open this year, by this school year. It will not. We won't be in a position to open. Now, Brian, we were talking today. President Trump is pushing for schools to open. And I have no respect for the man, but I do want to put this on record. I would not want his job ever. I certainly would not want it now. And the reason is you're looking for this, you have this situation. And man, if there's ever been a proverbial rock and a hard place, this is it. On one hand, if you open too early, right, or get people back, more people are going to die. Anybody who thinks this is a hoax, wrong go. But right now, you have this slow death by economy. So you have people, they're approaching depression numbers already in the 3rd week of layoffs, the money, et cetera, et cetera. I would say after health and after money secured, I'm talking about the place to pay, the schools would be number 3 on people's minds, maybe number 1 on some.
And you do know that with the governors, Trump said, at least there was some leaking of some recording on CNN, he did say that he was actually pleading with the governors to open up the schools.
And you know what? I understand that. I really do. I do understand that.
But he obviously thinks
Brian,
politically. What is he looking for in that?
No, here's the problem. And I don't want to say I told you so, but I'm going to say I told America so. Even if Donald Trump were a perfect person and a perfect leader, he still has his hands in too many economic pies that he did not divest himself from, and I don't know. So what do I mean by that? Every time he issues a call It can be interpreted it's money in his pocket. What's his largest holdings right now? Real estate. What happens, in bad times? People don't pay their taxes. They vacate, the businesses leave. And the other part of his business is hospitality. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's spending any money. I mean, I mentioned before in Crystal City, we have 19 hotels. I would venture to say, I mean, I can't get in them all. In those 19 hotels, if there's 100 people staying there, that would be a lot.
Mm.
And they're packed at this time of
And
year.
he cannot force them to go back. That's the thing.
No. Well,
Can't.
can he? Did you say he cannot or can he?
He cannot force them to go back.
No, and I think you're seeing that already in the early states. Georgia, some went back, some aren't. And this goes beyond. I mean, this goes beyond. We talked last week a lot about. I don't like the term Republican Democrat. I mean, it's there. You can name. I like the term liberal and conservative.
Correct.
Now, you could say, well, all conservatives belong to the Republican Party. Okay, but that takes it's really if you the big difference is whether you're conservative or liberal. I'm an uber liberal, so I look at the world through that eyes. But here's what happens: you take the governor of Ohio. He's bucking Trump, right?
Mike
He's a Republican
DeWine,
governor.
correct.
And his popularity is climbing while Trump's is going the other way. Now, again, let's be honest about things. The governor of Ohio only has to worry about Ohio. The president of the United States has to worry about the entire country and indeed the world. But even there, so let's move over to Michigan. Trump calls the Michigan governor that woman.
Right.
And with that remark, he may have signaled the best single candidate that the Democrats could run. Joe Biden has already said it'll be a woman. I don't think our name was being circulated that much. Now it's being circulated a lot. Her popularity is rising. Now, I always said I wouldn't trash my journalistic colleagues. Well, there are a couple of things that you have to do. I understand this. It's hard, and I've covered a lot of rallies, Brian, in my time. It's hard to get a crowd count. But I guarantee they're not huge crowds, okay, that are doing this, open it up. But because they're vocal, because they're loud, because they're wearing masks or not wearing masks, as the case may be, and because they're carrying weapons that should be in the hands of the military only, it becomes a story. It has to be covered. Think about it. So pick any capitalist state where they do this. What? 97.8% of the people are doing what they're supposed to.
Correct.
Well, how do you write a story about everybody staying home? So do you not write the story? No. But it tends to get overblown. And when people say that, I do want to say something interesting tonight. I think it's the most interesting thing that I saw this week. We all know, we're all laughing about or crying about Donald Trump and the Clorox, right?
Correct.
Or whatever bottle. Well, this is one of those times when Donald Trump was semi-right, but he was even wronger than he was ever semi-right. What do I mean by that? Okay, so he takes the national stage. Now, tonight you and I are winging this, right? We're kind of ad-libbing. I don't even pay attention to what I'm saying. I just try to answer your questions. But even we know we're going out to people. Maybe only one person, right? But that's fine. And I think you have a responsibility to be as truthful as you can. Now, we're not going to speculate wildly. Well, let me ask you something, Brian. Here's what I want you to do right now on camera, okay? You got a gasoline around? You have some gasoline, right?
I went to get gasoline today, believe it or not.
Well, okay, so you have a full tank, right?
Well, not in my car. I'm just saying for the lawnmower.
Okay, what I want you to do is go get that gasoline can, douse yourself with it, and light a fire. Let's see what happens, right? No, I know better than to suggest that. And that's basically what Donald Trump kind of did. He turns to his science advisors and says, you know what? Bleach kills these things, right? Can't we find something like bleach? That's its exact word. I mean, I've looked at the transcript a dozen times. Well, first of all, that's stupid to do. But did he tell anyone to go and drink Drano or bleach or Mr. Clean or Clorox? He did not.
But he's doing it right off the top of his head, Dave. He's coming up with the most bizarre. He's like Robin Williams, but he's not funny. He's a stream of consciousness, and then he blurts something out as if he were in a private room with Dr. Burks asking a question.
I don't want to cut you off, but I just did. No, there you are. There are certain things we say in public and certain things we say in private. I'm going to play the role of the president for a moment. And we're in a room, and all you people listening, all 5 million or 2 of you, you're my advisors. I might pose some really weird questions, right, in that room. But when I go out, I'm not going to do them on national TV. And that's the place for them. You just said, there's private and public. The way we're dressing at home now. I ask, how many of you would go to work like that? Very few. Okay, there are some people getting dressed up, but very few. So there's you have to know that. Donald doesn't know that. But here's what else Donald didn't know. He doesn't understand that he does have a cult following. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, I'm not saying every Trump supporter. Remember Jim Jones? And it came into the vernacular, drink the Kool-Aid. Well, there are people who probably worship Donald Trump more than they worshiped Jim Jones. So when he mentions this, and some of them, aren't really that thinking or that bright, and they heard they didn't see it as a suggestion. Okay, so he shouldn't have done it for 2 reasons. You don't speculate that, and you have to think there are people out there. I'm the president of the United States who are following me. I can't do that. But he doesn't stop there. See, Donald Trump can never stop. So the next day, some of his people said, well, he was just speculating, and they were right. But he can't stop there. So then he says, no. I was using sarcasm. Fuck you, Donald Trump. You weren't using sarcasm. You weren't using the brain that's inside your head, even if it's shriveled. You didn't know what you were doing. Brian, you just said it. He's just stream of consciousness completely. All right, but he can't even stop there. Okay? So he's denied it, right? It's sarcasm. So if it's sarcasm, Absolutely. It doesn't mean anything, right?
But why? When do you use sarcasm?
He did
during a I know that, but even the idea of using sarcasm during a press conference dealing with a pandemic.
Yeah, I'm a sarcastic son of a bitch. Anybody who's in my classroom or knows me, I'm good at it, right? But again, there's a time and a place to use it. When people are dying, it's not a time to use it. Okay, so let's look at this. So now he says this. But now he wants to make it even worse. Reporters ask him a very legitimate question. Mr. Trump, there have been increased calls to poison centers all over America asking, is this okay to do? I don't know of any recorded deaths about it, or I don't know all the statistics. And Donald Trump answered this way. No, it's none of my responsibility. Donald Trump, every goddamn thing in America is your responsibility. Harry Truman said it best. The buck stops here. And it does. Donald Trump's motto is, no, I'll pocket the buck.
Right.
And walk away.
Well put.
That's really what he is. He has. I don't even think he understands what morals are. I really don't. I mean, there's immoral, amoral, moral. I don't even think it enters into his conversations. I think it's, I'm surprised sometimes in his press conferences he doesn't pull his pants down because he has to pee. Right. That's what he wants to do right then. So that's kind of bad. But let's finish on that school thing. He wants them open. That's great.
This deals with the economy, and I assume that there is that fear that has.
Look, people can't homeschool. All right, look. People misinterpret what you say all the time. I get misinterpreted all the time as a writer and a speaker. But let me try to be clear on this. I can't put a percentage on it, but I'm going to guess. And I'm going to lowball it. 75% of what's being done now online is complete and utter bullshit. Okay? It's not valuable. It's not benefiting anyone. No one is to blame. No one saw this coming, right? I mean, really to be here. Some schools had literally a week before they were out. Some a matter of days. Some schools are already into this. So, you're just doing the best you can, which is fine. But the best you can, that's okay for this year. Is it okay for next year?
Right.
No. Now, let's look at let's look at a grades. I've been looking
Okay,
at
let's center in that. Let's look at whatever area, secondary or whatever. Let's look at that. Let's look at
We'll
September.
focus on secondary, but just elementary, because one is easier than the other. Okay, there are two really schools of thought circulating right now, and neither one involves full-time attendance by students. Well, there's really three. Okay, so the first is continuing online. All right, that way the kids, are safer, maybe. We're not going to get into abusive parents and roaming the streets and lost, but that's an idea. If you're not in a crowd, you're theoretically safer, right? You would agree to that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
your behavior tends to be better
when
you're not in a crowd.
So we're going to dismiss that, although it is a real possibility. So we're going to look at the two that mix and match, I call them, and they're hybrid. One would involve A/B days, right? A/B weeks, where let's look at an elementary school that's K to 8. So maybe on Monday, K through 4 would go, right? Mm-hmm. And on Tuesday, 5 through 8 would go. That would be a possibility. Or do it by weeks, because you have to reduce the number. Now, everybody's kind of in the schoolroom, right? How in God's name are you going to socially distance by 6 feet in any classroom in America, and continue school the way it was? Something I hadn't thought about, and I didn't think about this. What's the biggest thing you can do to keep yourself healthy when you're out, Brian? What would you answer?
When you're out, when you're saying
when you're out anywhere, 2 things you should do.
Well, it's for anybody: eat right and exercise.
You missed the point, and I'm not saying you're dumb. The 2 things you should do in the virus is this: wear a mask and use hand sanitizer.
Okay. I thought you were just talking in general, broadly speaking.
No. Okay. Have you ever seen an elementary school with masked children?
Never.
How are they going to tie their masks?
They can't even tie their shoes.
Exactly. Now, I'm not putting that. Okay. Now, let's look at hand washing. Who is going to be in charge of making sure that the students wash their hands? So there are problems in the elementary, but they pale in comparison when you look at secondary education in America. Okay? So, well, Dave, why are you saying that? We could just send 9th and 10th graders, like you said. Mm-hmm. And here, the other thing that they're looking at, I neglected to point out, is also a situation where you would go half day to school and half a day would be spent online. Because you can't accommodate the whole school.
Not with physical distancing, it can't be done.
It can't be done. All right, so that sounds good, but in high school, okay, it breaks down because not everybody is a pure 9th grader, a pure 10th grader, a pure 11th grader, or a pure 12th grader. You have mix and match. Brian, you're a business teacher, and for the words that are called for business, they're called an elective. A lot of, and even in some states, phys ed is elective. In New Jersey, it's not; it's required. But your basic requirements are English, history, some math, right? And then everything else is pretty much electives, depending on the school. So you could, but how do you teach a language? You have kids from all places, and if anything, that situation is more prevalent today than when I went to school. And yes, you could say I rode the dinosaurs to school. It wasn't that long ago. I graduated high school in '69. But since then, we have advanced courses, right? Advanced placement, and people are moving up, and they're taking college credits. And so this whole system, it just begins to break down. Now, let's look at some other factors involved. Okay, right now, as much as parents are complaining, and they should, about having their kids home and that kind of thing, and they're not equipped to do it. And certainly parents, my shout out to you is just do the best you can. You're not teachers. I'm not putting you down. That's not what you do. And you have to do your job to pay for the home you're in, right? And you're working from home. But looking at that, what happens is this. Okay. So now at least your kids are home, you know where they are. Now let's assume that in September it's good enough so that the husband can go back, but the wife stays home and continues to do that. Well, now you're okay because if the kids come, but what if you both go back to work? Who's going to watch the kids? Childcare is now. Can you imagine? You can't even send. I mean, where are you going to send it? Now, the big bugaboo, there's been some brilliant writers on this. I know it's how many districts in America, high school districts, are run by busing and sports. That's virtually all of them.
Right.
Okay. So you're going to eliminate all sports. Now, I talked to Brian today. He didn't like this, but I like I said, I think he may, I'm just saying he may be constantly at home monitoring. Your classes may be online. Brian's good at that, outside of tonight when he kind of messed up our thing. But it's all Brian.
That would be entirely untrue. He's being sarcastic.
No, I'm not. I'm being absolutely 100% true. But here's the thing. And I'm an English teacher, right? And I'm going in every day, right? And Brian's never going in. You don't think I'm going to bitch about that? I'm not going to say, I'm going to say, Brian, get in here and take one for the team. I'm risking all this stuff. Now, let's do one more thing, and then, we can kind of get out of education.
What would it be, David, if I interrupt? What you say, I understand that philosophy of taking one for the team, but how about if the table was turned and it was affecting the youngest people? They wouldn't be saying that.
Well, no. I mean, but here's the interesting thing. And this is as frightening. I love horror novels. I love horror films. My favorite literature to read is dystopian, apocalyptic fiction. I like to scare myself. And there are things out there right now with this disease that are as scary as anything I've ever read. Viruses mutate. End of story, right? Today, I don't know if you've seen, it's the first kind of definitive proof that the SARS was the last really killer virus, right? It was widespread. It was a corona. And here's this. I see a thing online that says, do not forget maintenance staffs that have to clean up and disinfect these classrooms every night. You're absolutely true. Who posted that?
That's Sandy. By the way, that's a good friend of ours, Sandy, from Facebook. And
well, Sandy's absolutely 100% right.
Thank you, Sandy.
Like the old days. Okay. And we're going to talk about that, Sandy. We're going to come back to that when we talk a little bit about the other industry that may never be the same. Well, none of them, hospitality. But let's finish with schools. Okay. And let's do what Sandy suggested. Okay. You have a class, right? It comes in. That classroom has to be disinfected before it's used again. Has to be. So all these questions. Now, look, again, I said I'm glad I'm not the president of the United States. I'm glad I'm not in education anymore. I spent 34 years in it, all the way from, a lowly first-year teacher all the way up to a national education consultant. And the best minds are working on it. Just want to touch briefly on college. I'm going to say that colleges will not resume in September. I hope I'm wrong. If I was the kind of person who prayed to the biblical God, I would pray that I was wrong. And here's why I say that. Two reasons. One, they're a little bit better with online learning, right?
Correct.
But more importantly, at least in the community, the kids that go to school are there, right? They are there in that community. Colleges come from all over the world. And that was part of what was disturbing about some of these studies that were released today. They're saying the virus does not die out in heat. It does not. And there's proof of that. If it died out in heat,
Singapore,
it wouldn't be in some of the countries that it's in, right?
Right.
They're when we're in summer, vice versa. So you have that. Then you have these people coming from all over the world. So, I don't want, yes. I mean, I'll be honest. The whole goddamn mess is bleak, right? It's bleak. Now, we have a lot of human ingenuity, but here, Donald Trump, if you're listening, because I know you won't read about it, but if you were listening, here's what I would tell you. Mr. Trump, I understand the difficulty that you're in, especially in this situation. I understand that you're weighing a lot of things, but this has to be a national response. It should have been from the get-go. The other country that I'm following very, very closely is Australia. And the reason that I'm following it close is I shouldn't be on this damn show, listening to Brian, whatever he's saying, is to go, I should be in Australia with my grandchildren, my son, and my daughter-in-law. He took a 1-year position at the University of Australia, the National University, and they're there. So I'm very interested. New Zealand, their neighbor, says it's got it. When it says under control, it's just, it's not done. It's just it's not increasing, right? And Australia is doing a better job. But remember, it's an island. It's all these other things. But what do those two countries have? It was a national effort, right? Now, don't tell me that Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne and the Outback are the same. There's differences there. So it's the same as Montana and New York City. And it should have been based. We should have had a national effort. Donald Trump can say all they want about the test. I think tonight I would send William Pence, the vice president, to his room without dinner. And the reason I say that, he walks into the goddamn Mayo Clinic hospital.
Right.
What does that stupid fuck not wear? A mask. Now, what's that? Macho shit? Is God going to protect him? What was that? You're an idiot. You're worse than an idiot.
He's a glib idiot, though. That's the problem with Pence.
I don't give a shit. I don't
he sounds like he's reading a fairy tale when he talks at a press conference.
He won't be in a room with another woman. Fuck all that, right? I mean, he's a nut.
He is a nut. In his own way, he's just as crazy as Trump.
Having said that, I'd probably rather have him president than I would Trump. But sometimes I'm not so sure of that. He wants a goddamn theocracy.
Right.
Hey, Mr. Vice President, there's a show on now on Hulu. I know you're not going to read the book. It was written by one of the greatest Canadian writers who ever lived, Margaret Atwood. It's called The Handmaid's Tale. And basically, it shows you what happens when you got a goddamn theocracy running America. But anyway, I digress, or as our mutual friend says, I digest.
Digest, right?
I get the words. But so let's move on. If anybody has any questions,
we do have a few points here. I think Scott Murto was mentioning.
Yeah,
we touched on sports.
Let's do that, Scott.
But he did say it is a significant question how the mass sports sectors of the economy are going to transform as a result of this.
Absolutely. Look.
And include the WWE in this, because I want you to discuss that also.
I will. Okay. Now, let's look at that. There's two schools of thought about sports. They're either underemphasized or they're overemphasized. Very few people, right? But sports are they're built into the American psyche, all right? They're built into a lot of places' psyche. They are extremely important. Here in D.C., and by the way, I'm still a Phillies fan, but I like the Nats now. They won. You don't want to be with them. When the Nats had their championship parade, the museum was still open. I was still working there. It was a 6-story building. You could get up on top, and I watched that crowd, and it went further than the eye could see. Will we ever see a crowd like that again? Certainly not for a couple years. I'd ask this. Look, everybody's dying. Boy, is that a bad choice of words? No, they are. I mean, they're metaphorically dying because there are no sports. I put my grandson at the head of that list. He's at that age. He's 10. Sports consumes him. He's really good at them, but he also likes to watch them and professionally. He got up, I think it was 4 a.m. Australian time, so he could watch the NFL draft. Which is the only thing that sports has been, right?
Right.
At this point. So now let's get to some of the things. The WWE, I'm gonna defend them in a strange sort of way too. First of all, it's beyond idiotic that Vince McMahon is advising Donald Trump, but they're friends. Donald Trump
and Linda McMahon is the head of this SBA.
Well, what I'm saying is, Donald Trump shaved Vince McMahon's hair at one of the WrestleManias in New York City. It probably didn't even do that well because I've never seen Donald Trump do anything well. But it was there. So Vince McMahon, listen, he's a billionaire. He's a real billionaire maybe versus fake Donald Trump. And he's done it, da-da-da-da. Wrestling's fake, but it's a sport. A lot of people follow it. So when they said they were going to make it essential, what they did is this. They're still not, and people miss it, they're still not having crowds. It's done in effort. What they did is they opened up a couple facilities to not keep the thing. And I like Scott. I love when people disagree with me. I mostly agree. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Scott, I
you're
love you.
lucky.
I went the other way. No.
And somebody said you look young for your age. I think that was Sandy. So you've had two compliments tonight.
Sandy, I try to stay young. My hatred, distaste for Donald Trump keeps me young.
Yeah.
Now,
But don't
the
forget, we
idea
have a lot of people here. You just wait and see. You'll get somebody against you.
and here's what happens. Okay, I'm kind of taken, Sandy. I'm sure you're a very nice person. But I'm kind of taken. My wife and I have been married for 47 years. And in the event that doesn't happen, I do have quite a crush on Stormy Daniels. So, whatever happens. Now, let's get back. Okay, so we're looking at the WWE. So basically, if you could envision this, we know wrestling's fake, but it makes a lot of money. Two wrestlers are in the ring, right? Two announcers outside, one scantily clad woman that's always around there somewhere, and the sound crew and the camera crew. That's what consists. I like Scott's thing. Yeah, educational systems done as we know them. And Scott, I would carry it even a step further. I don't think we can name anything that isn't going to change. So let's just finish sports quickly. I've read, again, they're looking to try to get it open for a lot of reasons. All right, there's a lot of good reasons. Whether you like it or not, sports makes money. Whether you like it or not, sports brings money into the cities where it is. Whether you like it or not, the athletes are getting paid. Well, that's fine, but will they get paid? If sports doesn't get on again, I'll give you. I guess the best thing I could say about sports that really is graphic to me. Living in Washington D.C., which once upon a time was a sports desert, but has recently won a hockey title, the women's basketball league. Shout out to them
And the baseball team.
And the baseball team. Okay. So it's really kind of reversed itself around. And with the new coach, Ron Rivera, for the Redskins, I wouldn't count them out in a few years. But the sports section, in the Washington Post, and I would submit to you that the Washington Post is the second most influential paper in America, topped only by the New York Times. They don't even have a sports section now. Don't even have a sports section. They're running 3 pages in the style section. Now, if you had told me at any point in my life, as a journalist, as a sports fan, that would be the case, I would have responded this way. What are you smoking, or what are you ingesting, and can I have some of that? That was beyond belief. So you're there. Now, let's look at let's jump to hospitality and travel, because they're involved in sports, right? I mean, the teams have to travel. They'll be fine. Maybe. How many people on a football team, Brian, do you know?
53 or 55 without the taxes going.
But there's other people that go with the team, right?
Correct.
Coaches.
Hundreds.
100.
You know about management and everything. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, 100. Okay. Well, their planes are big, but they don't necessarily have 6 feet of separation
right.
for 100 people. So now, so what do you do there? Now, let's look at, for instance, I'd love to be in Australia right now. It's not meant to be. I'm not upset about it. The grandkids are safe. Michael and Shannon are safe. Judy and I are safe. Everybody's healthy. However, what you have happening is this. I won't be able to fly in until God knows when, right? And when I do, I fully expect, if I could get there, we would be quarantined for 2 weeks. All right. So, and that's going to be all over the place, right? So I was talking to somebody who are planning a wedding. And we could go into that. Weddings are going to fundamentally change, even maybe. I'm sure we all know people. I know personally people who went ahead and had a very small wedding during this time, maybe with 5 people attending, right? And zoomed it out to everybody. I know people who canceled their wedding. I know, not canceled, but postponed. I don't think this one couple who are really struggling, they postponed it to October. I don't see it happening then. By the way, yes, of course, World Wrestling is fake. It's athletic.
Joey was being sarcastic.
No, Joey's right, though. Yeah. I mean, yeah, those injuries are real, but everything else is fake. So what happens is, so we can't get, even with sports, I can't get it, we're not going to fly the same, right? Now let's get to the hotel accommodations. And this, I do have some small inside information. Somebody I know works is associated. See, what we don't know, and I don't mean this is secret or nefarious. All groups are working on what will this look like when it ends, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't know. Tonight, we can't even come up with anything, and groups are doing this. But one of the things that they're talking about, I thought was very interesting. I never thought of this. I travel all the time, both for pleasure, sometimes for work. I mean, I kind of knew this, but I blocked it out of my head. They don't clean the bedspread. They put fresh sheets on. They don't wash and sterilize the damn bedspread. They're going to have to, okay, or be cited. There's some thought. We're talking about half school. Remember we said that?
Correct.
There's some people that say half hotels. In other words, I stay in room 110. It is now closed until it can be, for a few days until it can be whatever. 111's open, and then that's closed. And when 110, that's interesting, right? Let's look at theme parks. Will Disney ever be the same? I don't know. Let's look at another thing is in hospitality. One of the things I could foresee is they will not offer cafes and cafeterias. That was the first thing to go down here, right? You'll have to go out, which is not the worst thing in the world, right? But that's something that was there. It was kind of nice if you pulled in. I mean, I've pulled into hotels at 2 a.m. Well, not that late. I mean, I pulled in that late, but everything was closed. But I pulled in at 11:30 at night, right? And I don't want to go out into town and get something. I just get a bite there. That's going to change. Now, let's look at half. What does half mean? Well, half means inconvenience, but it also means half the jobs, right? Now, one last thing I neglected to say on sports, which I think is fascinating. There's plans now being made, both for baseball and for football, to do something like this. To actually play, Arizona seems to be the ideal, right? I mean, in terms of, so going, say, to Phoenix or Scottsdale, and building a complex where 6 teams would come in, baseball teams. They play a series of games. They would then go back to where they came from. Another 6 would come in. I mean, that's not the baseball I knew. Do you think chlorine kills the virus? No. And it doesn't matter what I think. I'm not a scientist. I'm the first one that would say that. But it is interesting about this. All right, we have here, I live in a twin building apartment complex. And they're going ahead and fixing up the pool, right? It normally opens here Memorial Day, which is not that far away, right? So I was talking to them, said, yeah, we're going to open it. No way anybody get in there this summer. I see Olympic things up there. When's the next Olympics? I don't want to bet on it. We'll even see the Olympics again as we saw it. See, and I don't even know why you're listening to Brian and I, because we don't have any answers. But it's very simple. There are no answers. We're just in the beginnings of this. All right? We're just in the beginnings of this. Let's go back to the disease a minute, all the things that can affect it. Number one, is there any lessening of it in environmental change? By that I mean heat or cold. The studies coming out are saying no. We know that viruses mutate. Maybe it's already doing that. Have you been looking at what they're looking at now with young people with the strokes? When I say young, 30, 40, right? Yeah, TV is my master. That's true. And that's going to change too. All right. But, I'm just saying, so they've got that. How does it change? Now, again, I'm basically optimistic, but we're in this new world. Are we, any of us, naive enough that think somewhere? Let's assume the 2 things about China. There's 2 versions. One is it came out of a lab, correct? The other, it was naturally arrived. Is anybody naive enough to think that those 2 things aren't going on right now, somewhere in the world? Brian, I know you're an environmentalist. We've talked about this. The one thing, people ask sometimes, what keeps you awake at night? Well, nothing does. I love to sleep. But if I were to pick one in this, in that damn permafrost that's thawing, there's things there that we haven't seen that have been down there percolating for a while. Who knows what? We're going to be dealing with that. My point is, this is with us. this is with us. 1918, we talk about the closest thing we have to us to look at. The first wave was bad. The second wave killed people, more people than the first wave did. Mm-hmm. Georgia comes back. I was talking to my brother-in-law. He lives and sister-in-law. They live in a place called Ponte Verde. They're not right on the beach. They're across the road from the ocean. They've opened up their beaches, but this is interesting. You can't stop on the beach. You can't put down a blanket. You can't put down a cooler. You can't gather. You can't put your ass in the sand. You continue to walk. Right? They've taken all the parking spaces away, so there's nowhere to park. So that hopefully you're in the community. You can walk there. Okay. So now we're taking care of water. We have no water. We have no sports. Here's one that's interesting. What about movies? Will we ever go back to a movie theater? Most of what they're saying is take out half the seats, right? Okay. One other thing I thought was very interesting, and this is going to happen. This one I do believe. When we go out in public, our temperature will be taken. When we go to Lord, not if you walk out of your house. Okay, so I'm taking. Let's see. I'm taking Owen, my grandson, myself, Owen's friend, and someone else. And we're going to the Nationals game. And Owie has an elevated temperature. Owie can't get in. I can't stay with them, the kids. I bring them all home. Owie's devastated. We don't know. We don't know. My other interest, Brian and I share something in common. He's a very good musician who was a horrible band member. And I was a very lousy musician who was a great band member. We've actually played in a band one time.
I'll take that as a compliment.
There's actual video. Well, there's sound and video of that. But anyway, Brian, I'm going to ask you. I've been doing most of the talking tonight, and I'm never averse to that, but some of you. You have been at times where music was your primary fundraiser. I have too, right?
Correct.
Do you see any way in the next 2 years that live music, bar band live music, can come back?
Well, that's a great question. I don't. First of all, I think you've answered your own question. It's not going to come back. But look at all of the musicians, even great musicians, jazz musicians, who you may not see, on the top level. They have to survive by gigging and especially by teaching. And, you're traveling from student to student. You're essentially taking away the arts for these people.
Well, the only thing, and I'm not disputing you, the teaching, a lot of that's being done online. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
We've had this conversation. I'm going to speak as a teacher, someone who spent I was a couple things. I was a reporter, I was a teacher, I was a musician. They're the three that I spent most of my life doing. Look, I never won an educational battle at the state level. I never won one at the local level, and I never won one at the national level. I'm still convinced that I'm right, not the Donald Trump right. Teaching is not about the exchange of knowledge. It's really not. Teaching is about forming personal relationships, and that's very hard to do over distance, right? Or over the phone.
You have to have a rapport, you're saying. I understand.
Well, yeah. You have to, and that's established, in a classroom. Now, that's kind of going. I understand numbers and wayside and all that, but still, I think that's so much a part of it. I always loved this. William Butler Yeats, who was really an Irish poet, one of my favorites, and I used to have it on T-shirts. I had it up in my room. I'm probably going to get it wrong, so if anybody out listening there is a Yeats fan, I apologize in advance. But it was my favorite saying about education. It kind of summed up what it is. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And that's where you get into personality and free. Everybody listening tonight, everybody had one of two things. They either had a teacher that was so bad that turned them off to all education, right? Or they had a teacher that was so good that turned them on. Mm-hmm. Trainer, I see that. Rapport. Yeah, rapport. That's really what you're talking about. Now, the scary part is, as these people plan, do you think Donald Trump thinks that is all important? Obviously, Pence doesn't give a shit. He walks into a hospital without a friggin' mask on, right? And a lot of people are like that. They look at and they don't look at the human element. There were statistics released today. I'm not great on statistics, I know, but the Washington Post did a study of in Trump's remarks how many times he referred to himself and how many times he showed empathy, and they erred on the side of caution. And it was like 3-1, right? Three times praising himself to any kind of empathy, which I was surprised it was that much. So no, we
And
can't
that was planned as it was, the empathy.
well, what
He's probably been, advised. You have to throw a bone somewhere. You can't
yeah.
tell me that he has true empathy. You know he doesn't. You and
No,
both of
you
us
can't even
agree on
say
that.
it. Look,
Right.
if you have true empathy, it would probably start with your family, right? You wouldn't walk with an umbrella and let your wife walk without one. I know what Judy would do. She'd grab that umbrella and hit me over the head.
Right.
Melania, a little different. We're not going to talk about Melania tonight. We're just not. We'll talk about her some other time. But let's see. What haven't we covered? Okay.
Well, if I can I revisit something?
Oh, anytime.
We were
right?
talking about what was going to be happening. You were talking about the sports events and things like that. I am not naive enough to think that Republican politicians do not see what's happening or going to happen in the future. Just like religious people kind of know when there's a pandemic that God's not going to answer their prayers. It's going to have to be done through the hospitals. But now you could disagree with me. I'm saying many of them. But what I'm saying is let's just posit that those politicians know exactly what you're saying. Yes, we may have classrooms where you have A and B schedules. We may have sports set up in a completely different fashion. And we know that they want to hold on to power. And they know that's coming. At least I would think. So between now and then, politically speaking, where do they go with this? Because you have to put don't think as a liberal. Think of yourself as a conservative.
Oh, no.
And how are they going to think of them as scheming people? Because they are.
Look, let's get rid. Now I'm going to get rid of liberal and conservative. If you're going to run for office, there's only one thing: you've got to get elected, right?
Right.
You've got to get elected. Now,
by any means possible.
It's the line you draw, right? There is no one blameless. The money is big for the Democrats. The money is whatever. So you have to draw the lines. The lines are very unclear, but you have to get elected. So what they're going to figure out, and what any politician would do right now, if they're running this year, because honestly, that's one of the things about senators. They only care once every 6 years, right? House of Representatives cares once every 2 years. President cares once every 4 years. I mean, they're building toward it. So you have to look at your state. You have to look at all that stuff. So really, for the Republicans or the conservatives, they have to make a decision. Do they throw their lot in with Trump? Or do they buck Trump? Now, everybody says, they won't buck him. Well, I'm not so sure about this right now. You're beginning to see it. The governor of Ohio.
Well, Mike DeWine, right.
He's not.
But he didn't publicly go against him a couple of days ago when he was interviewed. But I get what you're saying. In terms of policy, yes, he's going against Trump.
I want to come back, and I see Dee Dee's up there, and we'll run over tonight. I have nothing to do until tomorrow morning, so we can go all through the night. Who the hell cares? But no, yes. So what they're going to look at is their state. Now, one of the things, and I don't have an answer for this. If anybody does, please put it up or ask around. See if we can find it. I'm afraid that maybe the United States has grown so much that maybe we can't be one country. And what I mean by that is, New York City, Montana. Wow. Okay. All those things. But the way we set up also was under this premise, and it's breaking down. The premise was that the House would look at the idea of representing kind of their states, right? I mean, they would look nationally, but kind of that. And senators should look at the whole country. Well, no, senators are looking to get reelected in their states. Now, if I were a betting man, I'm not, because I hate to lose. I hate to lose. So if anybody can guarantee I'll win in the casino, I'll be with you there all night. It's not I have anything more. I just hate to lose. But if I had to bet tonight, and I'll go on record as saying it, now, let me preface this by saying I once was a political reporter, and I was wrong 13 times on Donald Trump. 11 times he made a remark that I said, he's done.
I remember your comments to me.
I said he's done.
Right.
Nope, I was wrong. I said he cannot win the Republican primary. I was wrong. And I would have bet house and home and my firstborn, and we only have one child, and I'd thrown Judy in if the stakes were good, that he could not win the presidency. And I was wrong. Having said that, if you sift the tea leaves, read the numbers, look at the polls, put your hand up, wet your finger, you're not supposed to, but I'm in the House, you do this and you hold it up, right? Joe Biden, if the election were tomorrow, Joe Biden would win. Now, hear me out on this. And he shouldn't. This is how Trump disrupts politics. Trump has the bully pulpit. You know, they talk about the bully pulpit. He has TV. When's the last time you've seen Joe Biden on TV? Right? He's doing what we're doing.
Right.
Trump has found his rallies. All right. Now, again, if you read he's chomping at the bit. He says, get me out of this damn White House. I got to get out to the people. Right? I understand it. But he's got this. But every time, go back and look, his popularity was the highest when this virus hit. Because Americans have had a tendency, and not an unrighteous tendency or an unrightful tendency, to rally around their leader. But two things. Number one, his bump was the smallest in history. Right? He
Correct.
did get a bump.
1% or something like that.
And it started its downward trend before anybody else's. Every time he opens his mouth, there's a good chance that he's going to lose some support. Joe Biden is not saying anything. I don't know how, I'm pretty old. I don't know how young you people are out there, but my favorite boxer was Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay. If you don't know anything about him, please study him. It's very interesting. He's a true American hero. Dyslexic, couldn't read his own name, but had a wit about him. And his idea he came up with, he knew as he got older, he couldn't fight the same way, right? Because it was speed. And he came up with this thing called rope-a-dope. And what he would do against a boxer like George Foreman or one of these beasts, he would just go and let George beat the shit out of him against the ropes, right? And eventually George would would punch himself out. And Biden has no choice. But if you look at this election right now, it's kind of Biden's doing kind of a form of rope-a-dope, right? I mean, he can't do anything else. It's not like he could have another strategy. But Trump is verbally, physically punching himself out. He comes across, as a mean-spirited son of a bitch with no empathy. He comes across as completely stupid. He's also ignorant. What's the difference? Stupid, he doesn't know a goddamn thing. Ignorant, he doesn't care to learn anything. I mean, how the fuck does someone stand there and say, hey, I'm with a bunch of scientists, but they're really, really, really impressed with my brain. They're not impressed with the jack shit you had. There's two kinds of people hanging around Trump right now. I'm talking about his inner workers. Those who are going to ride him and those who have a higher calling. And I have met a couple of them who stayed there just to avoid the catastrophe as long as they could. And I hope that we come to recognize the two types. The types that they're for their own glory or whatever should be completely penalized. That would be Kellyanne, the goddamn worst product that Hamilton, New Jersey ever did. But anyway, she's just there for that. The others are trying this. So rope-a-dope. So who's going to win? Biden. Now, tomorrow I want everybody to do something for me, whether you read politics or not. Go and look and see what's being said about the swing states. Biden is leading in all of them. Now, again, election tomorrow, right? A lot could happen. A lot could happen. The other thing is, and this is my Biden theory, and again, we've talked about it, he was not my choice. My choice was Elizabeth Warren. Again, I've had occasion, I'm not special. I live in Washington, D.C. Hell, politicians are all the time over here. So I've had a chance to listen to her speak a few times. And Judy and I agreed. She's one of the most impressive. When I say speakers, I don't mean orators. I'm talking about thought people that I've ever encountered. Her joke was, I have a plan for this. Well, she does. This was before she ran. That's who Elizabeth Warren is. At the moment she dropped out, okay, I was going to go with anybody. I don't know if you've seen the meme. It's kind of cute. I'm not a big fan of memes. But there's a potato circulating, and it's something like this. This is a potato, and it's kind of diseased, right? It has spots and bad stuff in it. And they said, if this potato ran against Donald Trump, the potato has my vote. So, I mean, that was kind of the way I looked at it. So now I'm not like trying to find here's a good Joe Biden. And again, I pose this for anybody out there. I guarantee that the majority of you are looking at comfort food and eating it. Okay? Because when times are bad, you want some comfort. And Joe Biden is a political equivalent of comfort food.
Now, there's where I want to delve into for a few minutes. I know this show's been kind of long, but I think it's important because Dave.
Well, it's the only thing I've got this long.
Right. Well, the thing is, Dave, you are now seeing a few of the subscribers from Head in the Box who have come over to Divided We Stand to join the chat rooms and watch the show.
I hope that comment up that now is not talking about us. Or it
now,
is. I couldn't watch it for I hope they're talking about you and not me.
I am pretty much of the two. I'm more confrontational than Paul, and I'm more political than Paul, and I admit that openly. And most of our subscribers.
I don't want to put you down. You're also not as good looking as Paul. But that's
no, I am not. But that being said, most of our subscribers came about from Guy McPherson, and Guy is an anarchist. And I'm not saying it in any negative or positive way. And we tend to have environmentalists and people who don't really believe in the political system. So they see, whether it's Trump or whether it's Biden, they see them as what they would call the elite. Now, they've had a real problem with me because I basically think like you, Dave. Now, I want you to give your pitch. I know you've talked about comfort food, but what do you say to those who say, well, you know what, Biden's paid off by the same people that Republicans are, and they're the same thing, and Noam Chomsky, all you have to do is watch 4 of his videos, and you'll say, you're right. How do you answer that? Because I'm going to keep out of it in this one.
Okay, I do it a couple ways. One is, would you rather be killed by Genghis Khan or Adolf Hitler? You say, well, it doesn't matter, I'm going to die. Okay, I would agree with that. I'd still say you could do some research and find out which one, was worse. In my opinion, I'm not sure. To say they're saying, okay, look, first of all, I admit the system is broken. The system is broken. I said that when I was taking the streets in 1968 and 69. I say it today, it's more broken. But the only way to change the system from the outside, right, is to burn it the fuck down. I'm not ready to do that anymore. I never was. Because what happens is you lose control of your dreams. Fortunately, when Occupy was here, I spent a lot of time with them, trying to give them some advice. They didn't listen to me. That was fine. But I think they had a great idea that just wasn't going to bring it across. And have a couple good friends, younger friends, everybody's younger than me, who are really, beyond Antifa on the left. And I said, that's fine. All that's wonderful, and you want to do that. But I'll tell you who impresses me more is AOC, right? And the 3 other horsemen with her, the women.
Right.
They're swallowing. They know it's broken, and they're trying to fix it from the inside. I have to say this. I supported Bernie in 2016. I did not support him this time, and there's a reason for that, and it's not a negative. It's kind of a left-handed compliment. Bernie Sanders is more valuable as the outsider, pointing out what's wrong. That's his role. He's very, very good at it. Right? And before we say there's not a difference, I'm going to suggest this. Look at what Donald Trump has changed. You want me to give it to you? I'll give it to you in a figure. 0. The Donald Trump who did that is the Donald Trump who did the election, is the Donald Trump we see today. I'm not at liberty. I'm not one of those, I know this person, I know that person. But I do know someone who was relatively business close to Donald Trump, and he was a good friend. He still is. He was Donald Trump's spokesperson in Atlantic City until he got fired because he said he wasn't going to do something that Trump told him to do, and he signed an NDA, a non-disclosure act. But the one thing he can say is Donald Trump then is the same Donald Trump today. Donald Trump has never evolved. He's never changed. he was probably that way, not coming out of the womb, but when his father sent him to military school, he's probably been that way since then. So since his teenage years. Joe Biden has changed. Now, why do I say that? Okay. He knows human loss. Okay. Now, is he too touchy-feely? Of course, for the modern age. Did he rape? No. Did he sexually assault the new woman who's in the news? I got to be honest. If he did, that's horrendous. He has to answer for that. But I would say that Donald Trump has assaulted 30 women for every woman. So am I still a radical? Absolutely. But I'm what I like to call myself a pragmatic or a realistic radical. Only one thing I care about in this election. Only one thing. I like that. Someday, Scott, I love to talk with that about Bannon because to me, he's one of the most fascinating.
Next week's show.
Yeah, maybe
No.
characters. Except I never met him. At least Donald Trump, I have heard him speak and seen him a couple times. I've been in his presence back in Atlantic City days. So looking at Biden, he has a lot of loss. Biden has one characteristic that Donald Trump lacks. Even if everything else were the same, Joe Biden is empathetic. And not in the way that Bill Clinton was. Bill Clinton was a masterful politician. I don't do a good Bill Clinton, but I feel your pain, right? But he did. That part of it was true. The second reason, so we've got the comfort food issue. I think Joe Biden is political comfort food. Why I can support him. I could support, he's not the potato. He's much better than the potato, and I would do that. Another reason is, do you really think that he's not going to ask Barack Obama? Hey, they had a bromance. They did. I mean, that's not fake. And what they were, they complemented each other so well, right? One young, one old, one white, one black, one with no foreign, experience, one on the other side. Now, is Joe Biden perfect? No. Did he plagiarize his papers? Yes, absolutely. Could we find some sexual? Yeah, probably. But it comes again. The other thing is, and I think this is the new question, and this is where Trump is going to fail. Do you remember the question in the one election? We're testing you here, Brian. It was a marvelous question. I ask you, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
Absolutely, remember that's Ronald Reagan,
Exactly.
And I thought he started the whole problem as far as
well.
We can
it's
get
true,
into that,
but
right?
actually, he was the great communicator. Okay.
If the glove doesn't fit, you can't convict. It's the same thing.
I'm not saying that, but I'm going to say this. Well, then they say, he actually appeared to be human. Maybe he was only an actor, right? Maybe he's only an actor, but he appeared to be. So the thing that I would say, you've got, to sum up with Joe Biden, why Joe Biden? What would I say to people? I'd say, look, you're probably not going to listen to me, and that's fine. I have students who are attacking Joe Biden every day. They were on the other side, former students, although I was keeping as my students. I understand them. They're young. Look, you think the world is fucked for us? Look what they have. A dying planet, in debt, no chance of jobs, closed out. The baby boomers, of which I'm part, holding on to their jobs forever because they can't afford not to retire, right? And people get upset about that. Like, what was it? Okay, boomer, was going around. I thought that was funny. I just thought that was funny. What do they call it? Some young people were saying about the boomer removal. Yeah. I mean, I understand that. I understand the frustration. What I would try to say, the only thing you can say is, let's just talk a few minutes about why you think Joe Biden and Donald Trump are this. I don't. And I would try to point those things out. And I think, again, Barack Obama's kiss of death. Look, Donald Trump isn't president if there weren't racists who think the worst thing that happened to America is to elect a black president. Let's face it.
We know that the Republicans stonewalled Obama all the way through. And it wasn't until 2 years later that he figured that out. So what would have happened to Bernie? I'm going to say I would have voted for Bernie. What would have happened to Bernie Sanders? Because he would have been considered far to the left of Obama. He's a Jew, and he's, to them, a communist.
Well, of course, I find this fascinating. Americans will take authoritarianism and fascism, but they're terrified of socialism and communism. Yet we have a form of socialism. I'm a beneficiary of it. I get my Social Security, right? That's socialism. I'm a beneficiary of it. I don't fight my own fires. The fire department comes, right? I mean, we have it, but of course, this word. I think some of that comes from a misunderstanding of it, and we're not going to go into all that. But what I'm saying is, what would have happened at Bernie? First of all, I think Bernie Sanders would have beaten Donald Trump. I do. The problem would be what happens after that.
Right.
What happens? And I think he would have been shunned by Democrats, and he would have been shunned, definitely just non-player for Republicans. So what happens with that is this. Bernie, if you're listening tonight, anywhere, I admire the shit out of you. I do. Your role is the ultimate outsider. Again, I would ask people, look at what Biden's already considering doing. Now, I know considering and doing are two different things. There's about 3 or 4 of Bernie's big blank ideas going to be enacted. Maybe not the way Bernie would want them. I understand women. It is, look, women should have been running this country from the beginning. I honestly believe that. But they didn't, and suddenly now. Look around the world right now. Germany, New Zealand. Some of the best government is coming now from women, right? And that I hate to say that, but I think, again, I think there's certain characteristics in a woman. If you can, that they are very powerful. Not all, I never say all, but they're intelligent, they're everything. But they also have, whether it's nature, nurture, whatever, they have kind of a built-in compassion. They are able to bring life. I can make babies, but they don't grow inside of me. I think there's something to be said for that. Well, okay, but do you not vote when Joe Biden, yes, is he pandering? Of course. But he's saying, I'm going to get a woman, and let's look at the reality of that. And Joe, I hope you live to be 128. But there's a good chance that one or something will happen. At his age, I wondered if Trump could finish. There's always that. The older you are, the more chance there is of you dying, and I don't want that to happen. The other thing is he's pretty much saying, and he's not power grabbing. He'll do one term and done, and that puts whoever is vice president in, as the logical running person. We talked about that. That's for another show. Who it will be? I have I think the interesting thing of the names that have been mentioned, I see positives in all of them, and of course negatives in all of them, which is the human condition. Brian, before we sign off, do you have anything else that you want to say?
First, as you can see from the scrolling ticker there. Oh,
yeah, you're asking, you know what he means by subscribe? It's not just, he says it's free, but he tracks you down. He knocks on your goddamn door and says, give me $5. Give me $5. I want $5. I don't do that.
Well, Dave knows the way I am. I don't believe in monetization. He knows that very well. And Dave doesn't either, I don't believe. And Dave will, we're going to do this every week, at least once a week. And Dave has a lot of other things going on, which, Dave, you can mention after I do mention. Please subscribe and please share this, because we want to have a very strong political program, which I can't really do on Head in the Box, but I can do it here. And there are a lot of people, and I thank you, those of you from Head in the Box that came over to watch this. Understand there's a large group of people that talk like Dave and I do. And we're trying to get them, but we want you to be there too, because you have a voice. So please come here, because you're not going to get the real provocative politics on Head in the Box, because we're a generalist there, and we're not going to focus on politics. But Dave does, and that's why I like having him on.
I think that's it. Although when you say Dave does on this show, I will say that anybody, anybody's welcome. If you give me some indication to be on my personal Facebook page, I kind of have to know you. But I mean, I said, if you're Brian, if I see you're, on Brian's list, reality list, I would add you there. I do talk about Trump on that page. I'm not successful there either. I still have 39 people. Last week it was 41, so it's working. I have 39 people who left who are conservatives. I want to drive them off. But I do want to end with this. Next time I'm going to have signs. Please join this and join that. I'm not prepared tonight. But I do want to follow on what Brian said. We have fun doing this. I have fun doing all the projects I do. Some, like I say, some are political, some are not. But it's sort of like the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one there to hear it, did the tree really fall? And it's even more so here. The other thing is, look, they say money makes money, and there's some truth in that. But there's a different currency now in social media. I see it in my writing. I see it, everywhere. And that currency is, how many followers do you have? As a freelancer, I'm constantly asked, well, how many followers do you have? Anybody out there who's played in bands? That used to be the thing. That used to drive me crazy. You go to the bar and say, well, how many people can you bring? That ain't my fucking job. Right. It's your fucking job. It's your goddamn job. It's the same thing. Right. Well, how many people can you bring? I don't know. Maybe my wife will listen. Right? I don't know. But so it is. And the nice thing tonight, I think we had more comments and things we can follow. And I'd love it, Brian, if someday, any day, I'm going to make two statements. One day, maybe soon, you open your mouth, and that's the only comment we make. And then we just follow what they're up there, right?
Right.
With there. The second thing is, I'm going to go on record tonight, whether you love me or hate me, or love Brian, or like me, hate Brian, or like us together or don't like us together, I will stop this show the day Joe Biden is elected. Now, I'm going to do it till then. Now, I'm not saying I'll stop politics. The purpose of this show is two people. We're not balanced. We're not fair. We have no intention of ever being that. I've made up my mind. Donald Trump, final thing I'm going to say tonight, Donald Trump is bad for me. Donald Trump is bad for you. Donald Trump is bad for America. Donald Trump is bad for the world. But if I really want to be selfish, Donald Trump is bad for the two people in the world I love the most. And they have a name. And I'm going to do a quick shout out to them. They promised they would watch tonight. They love to hear their grandfather curse. And that would be my grandchildren, Owen, who's 10, Audrey, who's 12. And they have already said that they wished they could vote because they will vote against Donald Trump. Brian, thanks for having me.
Can I just make one quick comment for those who are out there? A quick shout out to Scott Murto. Scott, you've been on Head to Have great comments. We appreciate it.
Brian will come haunt you if you don't go to my Facebook page, and then from there I can direct you to the other things I'm doing.
Right.
So I would.
Dave does a lot of things. Sandy from Environmental Coffee House. Go to see her group on Facebook and on YouTube, Environmental Coffee House. We had Joey Fulcher again. Human, thank you. Not all the folks out there agree with Trev B5 and the rest of you. I appreciate.
Where the hell was Mike Villella? You promised.
No. Now remember, Mike watches it on Periscope, and that's something that's done over the phone from time to time. He may not be watching live.
Why the hell doesn't he get on the reel?
I don't know. Look, we always get around 24 viewers on Periscope, and nobody ever sees it unless somebody actually makes a comment. And we usually get it from people who could be out in the middle of Arizona watching it while they're in the car or something. We do get those for some strange reason, but we do get people. That old thing.
So, so Brian, I'll just leave it at and I hope to see everybody next week. And I sign off the biggest project I have this way, so I'd like to sign off this shit. People, please, stay home.
Yeah. Well said.
If you stay home, you stay safe. But the most important thing is look at ways staying home or doing whatever you can help others. Because I guarantee you this, no matter who you are, me, Brian, Scott, Mike Villella, if he were listening, Donald Trump, it doesn't matter who. Even Doofy Pence, who goes into a hospital with no mask, but anybody. There are people around you that are worse off than you. So please look at a way you can help, in some way, help others. So let me just, again, to repeat, because I learned as a teacher, you can never repeat enough. Stay home, stay safe, help others. Brian, talk to you later.
All right, Dave. David Price. Again, David Price. Dave is a writer.
Brian, 1 minute before I go. Hold on just a second. I wore this shirt especially for this. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and would you describe it for our viewers in case they can't?
Well, we know that, Dave, you like the American Horror Story. That was a series.
No, that's not it. I like American Horror Story Donald Trump.
Looks like somebody threw acid on his face.
And this could be a selling point. I have a whole collection of anti-Donald Trump T-shirts. And if the viewership goes up, I'll buy even more. I have enough to run, I think, 8 programs. I have 8 different anti-Donald Trump T-shirts. And I'll go out and run. I mean, that's going to be a chance because, when you're in your house, Judy just looks at you and that same goddamn T-shirt again. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, this is my way. So I did want to bring that up because it's a little different here. Mm-hmm. My T-shirt is a lot cooler than I am.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dave, again, thank you very, very much. And thank you, everybody, for coming by. We hope you enjoyed the show. And next time,
remember, vote for me, not Brian. I'm the one. I'm the one. Okay. He took the host, but I'm the star.
Okay. All right. So we'll see you next week, Dave. We'll see everybody next week, hopefully on Divided We Stand. Please subscribe. Dave, please hang on for Skype for a couple minutes. I want to ask you about something I've been watching on Netflix.
And I want to ask Brian a big question. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll reveal it. We've only seen Brian. You saw me stand up. I have pants on. Did Brian have pants on during this whole show? I'll talk to Brian about it. I'll get back to
you. Okay. All right. Dave, thank you. I really do appreciate you coming on. All right. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.